Reality and virtual reality, training for the future. What I'm going to do is take on a very quick story of where this all began for myself and the fire service, where we're at the moment, and where we want to be, and how we're looking at changing, enhancing our training. This is for people who don't know where Leicester is or what it's famous for. So a quick intro to what. For some reason we lost that. I do apologise. We'll start again, shall we? Will virtual reality change the way humans learn? That's the question I always put it towards my audiences and my boss, because I work on the principle, if we would operate solely on the principle of that's the way we've always done it, we'd still be fighting fire with these leather buckets in water. So kind of a couple, 3 years ago, I kind of had one of them moments where kind of an idea kind of came to me, and I thought, well, how can we improve this? I do fire investigation training for the fire service, or shall I say, I'm a fire investigating officer, and I just thought there was a bit of a flaw in our training methods, and also go through how we train and how we're looking to change it. Basically, we send all our fire investigation officers to Derbyshire Fire and Rescue, and we train with them. Every 2 years, they have to go and be really accredited. This is kind of about 150 officers from Leicestershire, so it's quite a big training kind of task. How we train it presently, we have the old containers, big ISO containers, and what we do with these, we board them out, we then furnish them. And when they're furnished, they look something like that. This is just a kind of living room, or office or box room. And then we do what we're very good at the fire service, because it's fire investigation. We need to investigate a fire. So what we do then, we actually set it on fire. We record the fire, again, for training purposes. One, we could see how the fire develops and spreads, but also when the person carries out a fire investigation of this scene, we'll then allow them at the end to watch the fire develop to see if their hypothesis or their conclusion is correct. So we let the fire take its course, kind of within the fire, the sounds and that of the popping and burning. I'll turn that back on. You can see a Samsung 360 camera in the middle there. It's unfortunately, that camera is no longer with us. It suffered fatal damage in the fire. The memory card survived, but the camera didn't, unfortunately. But we got some great footage. It was getting quite hot at this time. Yeah, you're looking at up to that stage, perhaps only a minute and a half to get to that. So then we get the breathing apparatus crews come to put the fire out nice and gently. See a little kind of blast of a spray. If they put it on a jet, they tend to wash the scene away and ruin it for us. And that's what we're left with. And that's how we now train. We go into that scene and carry out an investigation. I'll go through why it's kind of not ideal in a moment. We also use the scene to train the fire dog, who is a hydrocarbon dog. He'll go in, find any use of liquid accelerants, and he'll put his nose on it and his tail will wag. And so we always use, if we want to do a burn, we always give the opportunity for Dave to bring the dog along and get some kind of training. There's only one thing went wrong here. Once he's done it, he gets his ball, but they threw his ball over towards the box. You see that box, that's got our sandwiches in. Yeah, and unfortunately, on this day, the dog found the sandwiches. So back to the training. So the container we use, it's like 2.5 or 2.25 meters by 3 meters, about a meter high. So it's quite a small area. We also need a classroom. because it's classroom as well as kind of practical based. There we go. Next. So the problem is, if we've got 16 people on the course, we cannot get 16 people into that container. So the training really does kind of hit a stumbling block here. What we need to do is make them into smaller groups. So if we break it down to 4 groups of 4, the problem is if it's the inclement weather, we then got to get 12 of them into a classroom, and then we've got to get kind of a rota sorted out so they get an equal time each in the container. We need another instructor who's got to keep them in the, who will be giving them lectures and that in the training room while they're doing their inspection. And the last group still needs their time to carry out their investigation and then kind of do the paperwork. So it's very, very time consuming and it's kind of labor intensive. So on a normal kind of 12 months, we'll possibly get a dozen courses. So we'll have to get, say, 192 people through that scene. And to do a fire investigation, what you need to do is start at the area of the least damage, the doorway, and work towards the area of most damage. And what you have to do is take items out and look for areas of interest. So basically, you're dismantling the scene. But if we've got 16 courses, we can't dismantle the scene because the next course will have nothing to investigate. So it's one of them, you can look but you can't touch. So there, in my eyes, is one of the biggest flaws. You can't do a proper investigation. So what we had to do, we built a studio on site. As you can see, there's a BA debris shelter. We've kind of covered it over, turned it into a studio, and we 3D modeled all the items in the container. And then this is what we did. We put everything back in, and then it was kind of not scanned. We used photogrammetry to reproduce the whole scene. This is photogrammetry of within inside the fire investigation together. The reason we use photogrammetry is because it gives us the clarity, the clearness of items, because when you're doing an investigation, you need to be able to see kind of the detail. So that's what it looks like after we've reproduced it. So what we've done now, so we don't want to make people go into that container, because one, we've got to transport them there. 2, we've got to keep the container in a decent condition for perhaps 6 to 12 months to get all the courses through. There's other issues as well, because you've got contamination with contaminants. When you go into that container, there's possible carcinogens or kind of toxins within the smoke and the ash, and every time we go in there, there's a possibility of contamination. So what we've done, we've recreated that in the virtual world. This is another scene we've created, but we've filmed it so you can actually see what's possible. You can see the controllers. You can see hands to operate the controllers, but within the scene we need tools. So we've got scene lighting. Because we turn the services off, there's no electric in there, so we've got scene lighting. We've got a gas monitor to check to make sure that it's safe for us to be in there. All these equipments work. We've got a dictaphone so we can take notes, so we can download them afterwards. We've got a camera, so we get our photographic evidence, and these can be printed out afterwards for part of your report. The torch, again, kind of to give you the light inside, because it is very, very dark in there. And last, we have the number plate. So if you see an item evidence, you put that against something and take a photo. Before the person enters, we give them the backstory. So we tell them the time of call, any information kind of obtained by the incident commander before they start the investigation. So we go inside, we open the door, and then we go into the room of origin. As you can see, there's a lovely burn pattern on that wardrobe. The room itself, there's kind of been quite severe burning. It's quite dark, so we'll get the torch out so we can have a look round. This area down here does cause a lot of the trainees to think there's an area of interest there, because you can see in that corner where it's lit up now, there's some burnt debris. So quite a lot of the kind of trainees, they'll put a number against it and take a photograph because it's an area of interest. A few think that's where the fire started, but when they've had further investigation, they kind of realise it's actually a drop-down fire from above. If you see in a moment, you'll see the curtain rail, and on the left of the curtain rail is the remnants of curtains. So they've caught fire at the top, it's burnt through, and they've dropped onto the floor. All items in there can be sent for forensic testing in the forensic lab, and you've got the ability to pick it up, look at it in more detail. You can put it back into the building if you want. You can view all your photographs. You can print your photographs off. You have the ability to evidence every single item from the room, so you can clear the room. Everything goes into the forensic lab. Everything's set up as it would be inside the room of origin. So you've got a 360 to walk around every single item. Once you've cleared the room, it gives you the opportunity then to look around and look at burn patterns, smoke patterns, areas of what's been protected and areas which have been exposed to fire. And once you've done all this, you have the ability then to put everything back in place. Ignitable liquids, we need to discount them. So we've got a kind of 2D video of the dog going in, discounting it. And then what we do, we allow them to see the fire develop. There's a little link on that video, so I can show you that a bit later on. So that is now what we've done now is produced a fire investigation scene in the virtual world where all our students have the ability to train on station. They don't need to go to Derbyshire. They don't need to go into that container. They can be on duty, so if they get a call, they can take the headset off and ride the fire appliance. So logistically, it's far better. The instructor could be remote, which is a fantastic advancement. But then we got hit by COVID, which kind of stops our training to a certain extent. But then we got used to Zoom. So we were now doing training on Zoom. We're inviting people in and we're holding our training sessions on Zoom, which went down really, really well, very successful. And then we thought to ourselves, we need to make this perhaps more remote. So what we've done, we've now looked at possibly getting 3 people in the scene. So we've got 3 officers here who are going from their home location to their nearest fire and rescue service station. There'll be one at Loughborough, as you can see there. One will go to Bristol headquarters, and then one will go to the training centre at Bristol also. They'll put the headsets on. And what this doesn't mean now, they can all be in the same scene at the same time, communicating with each other, passing items to each other. So you can have 2 trainees and an instructor, and the instructor could just stand and watch and let them lead, or the instructor can lead the training session. With this being remote, and when the kits, with this being remote, we can have portable kits they can actually take home, the flexi officers, and they can use it at home, so they don't have to go to a station. So logistically, it's good for us. The training can all be recorded. They can do the training ready for a re-accreditation. I think it's just a massive step forward for the fire service. And again, at the end, you let them see how the fire started. And this is the one you've just seen. And it's a good thing in here, we have the smoke alarm going off as well, so you know the smoke alarm's working. What we've also done, because we've only got 3 people in the scene there, we needed to be able to do a classroom session. So what we've done here, we've recreated the scene, filmed it all in 360, and now we're streaming it to 13 headsets. These are our 13 new recruits, and we put them through a session. They're all watching the same kind of fire training. I've lost my mouse, I do apologise. So they're all watching that. So this, if you look, the beauty of this is they are all looking in different directions. But they're all in the same scene. The beauty of 360, it puts them in that virtual world where they can look around and see things all around them. What I think this is a big plus is because in every training session, I know we get some people who will never ask a question, but when you put a headset on, all of a sudden you take them out of the environment they're in and you're putting them into an environment where they, for all intents and purposes, are on their own looking around. So if you ask them a question, they tend to open up and talk to you. So there's a massive, massive plus there because it gets people to kind of come out of the shells a little bit. But the training kind of creates a memory, and if that memory kind of is kind of a good training memory and you enjoy it, if ever you're in a position where you need to bring that back to the forefront, your mind will kind of your brain will pop it into your mind, and there it will be. and you'll be able to kind of work from there. We are looking at doing evaluations on these scenes, and this is just a clip. We were working with Coventry University, and they got 16 sensors, and they were measuring the frontal lobe. We were doing about kind of sorting a baseline out, then looking at just a 2D film, and then the 360 training. And these are the 16 sensors picking up brain activity. This is in its early stages. Unfortunately, again, due to COVID, we got the first lot of students through, and then we had to shut it down. But we kind of can't wait to the opportunity to get it up and running again. And this just shows again on the frontal lobe, so the activity, what was going on, why someone was going through the training. Initial signs are all really, really positive, but we're just waiting for the university to come back, who, once they've analysed it in more depth, then we've got a greater participation group. With some of the work we've been doing, BBC Click have been really interested in it. We've been on Click now kind of twice. That's Omar, and he's kind of following another project that we're on in Leicester. So hopefully we'll be on again in the not too distant future. And this is just, that's where we're at, and this is where I think we should be looking at. And this is now just my thoughts. Is kind of anybody who sits in the front of a fire engine as an incident commander has to be re-accredited every 2 years. It's can be stressful. It can cause anxiety because you're making life and death decisions. So, for instance, if you're going through your training and you're kind of running a 20-minute scenario and everything's going fine, then all of a sudden a woman with a baby appears on an upper floor of a building which is well alight down below. What's going to happen? I would imagine your heart rate is going to go through the roof, and your decision making over that next few seconds, minutes, may not be as kind of clear as it should be. So at the end of the training, if they've not reached the standard they needed to, and they've got a learning package to come, instead of saying, right, you need to go away and study everything, what we can do now, we could look at the area where they fell down, we could map it against the measurement of their heart rate, their respiratory rate, and if we see a spike like we did there, if they saw a mother with a child at a window and the heart rate's gone up, we know that's where the poor decision making was. What we can do, we can tailor make the training to the individual. So he gets a smaller training package or learning package, and then we can know the next 3 or 4 months we could train that out of him so his heart rate stays the same, so he doesn't get any sort of stress or anxiety when he comes across that situation. So it's an opportunity to tailor make the training to the firefighters. Augmented reality is something else I think will be a fantastic improvement for kind of the fire service, RTCs, road traffic collisions. You know, you can put kind of augmented reality glasses on. It can tell you what the car is. It can pick up safety points for the police and ambulance. If you've got facial recognition, it could tell you who the casualty is, which will benefit the paramedics because they can pull up then kind of medical records. It picks up kind of the cutting points for each vehicle we may need to cut, health and safety issues with visors knocked down, and they've hit electricity poles, so there's a danger there. So all that type of thing could be highlighted through kind of augmented reality to the incident commander. And this is just another one, a multi-vehicle RTC. So we've got more than one vehicle. We've got 2 or 3 crews, ambulance crews. So anybody who's coming on the scene wouldn't be 100% sure who's who. But again, if everyone's kind of been registered, we can then, with the augmented glasses, it will point out who the incident commanders are, who's with what crew, who's in charge from the paramedic side. I am kind of starting to speak a bit quick now because I've got a 5-minute warning. Buildings, we can go to a building, and this is a commercial split, flats above, shops beneath. You put your augmented glasses on, it updates, it analyzes the building. There's 2 entrances, one for the shops, one for the flats. Saves us time, it tells us which entrance we need. We know we've got people trapped on the upper floors. So we look up, the glasses have already scaled it for us, 13.19 meters. Our longest ladder on a fire engine will reach that. but the person above, we will not reach that with our ladders. We need to get an aerial ladder platform. So the incident commander needs to send an assistant message. This system would help them make them decisions a lot quicker. I am very much rushing now. Also, we can do, if we're in kind of anywhere, but this is just a big city, if we got a big job, if we had GPS locators on all our firefighters, so where they are outside a building, we can see them moving around, we know where they are, and once they go inside a building, if we've got 3D plans of all the buildings when they've been built, especially like new builds, we can then have a kind of schematic plan. So when our crews go in, we can monitor their progression. We know what floor they're on. We know where they're at. If they find a casualty, we may be able to kind of locate a quicker exit for them. Or if we have an issue with our firefighters and we need to put in crews to help them, we know exactly where their position is. So kind of GPS is a fantastic way of us to kind of run a fire ground. And when we go into wear and breathing apparatus, when we go into a scene, that's our bodyguard. That kind of tells them how much air we've got. It alerts us if we're not moving. It kind of goes into pre-alarm, so you have to move it. Otherwise, it goes into full alarm and alerts the entry control officer. But what if we decided that before we go, and we wear a patch or some sort of patch, which is monitoring our vital signs. So before we go into a job, we go to the entry control board, they take our tallies, put it in the board, and then it starts to register our heart rate. So they're kind of looking after our health at the same time when we're in there. If it gets really high, the entry control officer can then kind of call us to come out of the job because it's not safe to be in there. Also, if we find a casualty in a building or where the ambulance can't get to, if we had a patch, we can put on them. So the paramedics, when they turn up, they get their tablet out, and it will automatically feed back to them and give them the casualty's vital signs. So before the casualty even reaches them, they've got some idea what they might be treating. These are just kind of quick ideas from myself. Why VR-powered training is impactful? I think it says it all by itself there. Learning by doing, VR-powered training, 75% retention rate. I think that's a fantastic kind of statistic and something why we're now looking in more detail at the extension rate. And I'm now going to kind of finish up very quickly because I know I'm now running out of time. So at the start I said, will virtuality change the way humans learn? I believe it will, but it will come in all different forms and guises. It's not there to replace our training, it's there to enhance it, to make us kind of better firefighters, giving a better service to the communities we serve, kind of saving life, property and the environment. Thank you very much for listening. That was a very quick whistle-stop tour of what we're doing. There's far more information than I had time, but I hope you enjoyed it.